Welcome, colleagues, to Myford University. I'm George Sloan, the founder and dean of this alternative institution of higher learning. When you join us for classes, we actually don't hold regular classes, you will receive a masterclass theory and application that you can implement in your personal or professional life almost immediately to get results. We will be conferring proverbial, not actual, PhDs, poor hungry Germans, and MBAs, Master of Business Audacity, for all of you with the burning desire to better and improve yourselves without wasting massive amounts of money and massive amounts of time. In my case, I'm driven in a Ford F-150, hence our name. I consistently listen to videos and podcasts as I commute in my truck to work. Don't like my commute, it's kind of long and it sucks, so I decided to make the most of it. And I've decided to share my approach to alternative education with you. We will do our level best to make your commute in the morning and afternoon more fruitful and rewarding for both your personal and professional life. With that, let's get started. Today's thesis: college is bullshit. Yep, I said it. Higher learning is broken. It's overpriced, it's overrated, and hey, it's just plain over. College degrees once had greater value. Today, it's high school 2.0, and you get to pay for the privilege of a subpar education. To add insult to injury, the job market doesn't value the diploma anymore. In fact, many major corporations and companies are not requiring them anymore. Which companies? Well, here's a list. We'll start with IT and tech. Google, they prioritize skills and experience over degrees in roles in software engineering, data analytics, UX design, and they offer Google career certificates as an alternative to a degree. IBM, they led the new collar jobs movement. If you're not familiar with that, it's a new catchphrase they're using. They are dropping degree requirements for over 50% of its U.S. job openings. Apple CEO Tim Cook stated that 50% of Apple's hires in 2018 did not have a 4-year degree. Things are changing there. Microsoft, they expanded their skills-based hiring for roles in cloud computing, cybersecurity, and tech support. How about Dell Technologies? They removed degree requirements for many IT, sales, support positions, emphasizing real-world skills. Intel, they've implemented a skills-first hiring approach for various engineering and tech roles. How about finance and consulting? Bank of America, they dropped degree requirements for majority of entry-level roles, hiring from the lower income communities. JP Morgan Chase, they launched a skills-first hiring approach to fill their financial services roles with non-degree candidates. PwC, also known as PricewaterhouseCoopers, one of the big four, they eliminated degree requirements for certain consulting and auditing positions. Accenture, they created an apprenticeship program that now fills 20% of its entry-level jobs. Apprenticeship is a definite alternative course of action to going to college, and we are going to talk about that on Myford University in the future. Let's talk retail and e-commerce. Tesla, the CEO, Elon Musk, whether you love him or hate him, he has said a PhD is definitely not required, and skills matter more than degrees for engineers and other roles. Amazon Web Services, also known as AWS, they offer certificates for cloud computing, often considered an equivalent to a degree. Costco does not require a degree for managerial and corporate positions, so you've got some room to grow there. Walmart provides pathways for workers to move up without a degree and invest in skills training. Starbucks, they focus on work experience over degrees for leadership roles. How about aerospace and transportation? Delta Airlines, they removed the degree requirements for pilots and other operational roles. Hey, look, you're not going to learn how to fly a plane or repair a plane in college. You're going to learn that at flight school, or you're going to learn it in trade school to become a mechanic. And at the end of the day, that's what really matters. Can you fly it? Can you fix it? Boeing. Boeing hires engineers and technicians based on skills rather than degrees, especially in manufacturing and design. How about healthcare and pharmaceuticals? CVS Health has offered apprenticeship programs and certificate programs to develop skills instead of requiring degrees for many positions. United Healthcare Group, they implemented skills-based hiring for technology and administrative roles. How about hospitality? Hilton removed degree requirements for event managers, security officers, and other hospitality roles. There is a common theme, if you think about it, of what's running through here. So instead, these organizations, they value skills, experience, and coachability. I know you know what I'm saying. Really, you know. It doesn't care. It doesn't matter where you went. It's what you can do at the end of the day, and that's what these companies are getting into. And they've realized that many college students are not prepared. So it used to be conventional wisdom was to go to college, get a job for 40 years, and then retire. We all know those days are over. Now colleges go waste 4 years of your life, accumulate thousands and thousands in debt, get a low paying and low growth job, and never retire. If you believe otherwise, you're living in this fantasy land. What happened? Colleges and universities started to realize they were selling a piece of paper, a ticket that was to be stamped. Employers started to realize that graduates were ill-equipped and they lacked skills. These schools stopped teaching students how to think and instead started focusing on what to think. That's a key thing there. I see it all the time. Quite frankly, if you know how to think, you can problem solve, you can pivot, you can adjust, you can come up with some creative solutions. But if you know only what to think, you're kind of in a box. So how to think is a big part of what we're going to be talking about when it comes to alternatives to college at Myford University. Basically, the schools got lazy and complacent. I mean, everyone had to get a college degree, no matter what the price was. Even if the price put graduates in massive piles of debt. All you have to do is turn on the news, and you hear that all the time now, don't you? The government, of course, didn't help. They didn't help things either because they made the debt easier to get. Higher learning institutions also violated basic principles of economics, the one that you used to learn at some of these institutions, or you should have learned, probably don't learn it anymore. The one I'm talking about is the law of supply and demand. Essentially, the more people with these degrees, the less value these degrees can command in the marketplace. Yet, the price tag for these abundantly available degrees continues to climb. In fact, aside from healthcare, education is the only thing that traditionally and consistently outpaces inflation. Both healthcare and education falling somewhere between 6 to 9% increase annually. The inflation rate, or the percentage change of prices over time, historically tracks between 2 to 3% per year. Not exactly the case these days, but traditionally it's 2 to 3%. So when you compare that to the 6 to 9%, 2 to 3 times is the difference when it comes to regular inflation and healthcare and education. And we're most interested in obviously the education end of things here. However, things are changing. I mean, college enrollment is dropping. In particular, men are looking for alternatives because the return on investment, or ROI, for college is way out of whack. Male college enrollment has dropped about 1% per year between 2014 and 2020. During COVID, which is 2021 and 22, it dropped 1.3 and 12.4% respectively. Wow. It didn't level off, it dropped. In 2023 to 24, they experienced only a 2.3% decline. So stabilization, if you will, but a continued drop nonetheless. People are starting to catch on. It's just not worth it. Right about now, I suspect some of you are saying, hey, college still makes sense for some people, doesn't it? Well, I will concede that some professions need, or more likely require, a college degree. I will do a separate podcast on the degree required professions. Hint, it's about barriers to entry in many cases. Now, again, barriers to entry are things that they put in place to stop you from it makes it more difficult to get what you want. So if you're going into the STEM, which is sciences, technology, engineering, or mathematics fields, or you're going into law or education, you will need a college degree. Most other areas that you can go into, they really don't have any need or such requirement. In fact, there is yet another future podcast that I'm going to put together. Law degrees, you used to be able to go right out of high school into law school, but sometime around the mid 1900s, they started to shift over and required that you have a bachelor's degree in order to get a law degree and then obviously be able to take the bar. Again, barriers to entry. So we'll talk about that and address that at another point. But it's not necessarily something that just happens because the market deems it. It's actually by design. It's contrived, and it gets you to spend more money on school. Anyway, again, we'll address that at another point. Now, some of you may be saying, "Hey, George, don't you have a college degree?" Yes, I do. In fact, I have three. I have a bachelor's degree in design from Syracuse University, an MBA in finance from Iona University, and a Master of Science in Marketing from Baruch College, part of the CUNY, or City of New York University of New York. I'm not saying this to impress you by any stretch of the imagination. It's not a flex. In fact, I once told my wife it sounds very impressive, but it's really not. While I learned things from each of them, starting again today, honestly, I would not bother. Seriously, I now have a different approach and perspective to learning. For example, I would venture to say that in the last 2 to 3 years, I have earned and learned more and advanced myself more, well beyond those degrees, using some of my techniques. My new approach and perspectives are the foundation of what this podcast and related publications are and will be built upon. It's a very different alternative approach I will share with you. It is my sincere desire that what I do here will save you time, money, and a headache in the process. Not only will I share the knowledge and skills, but I will show you how to apply them in real world situations to get real world results. And at the end of the day, that's what companies are going to be looking for. They want to see results. So some of you may be sitting there saying, but George, what about the social aspects, the networking, the growing up? Honestly, there are nightclubs and parties everywhere. Really. There are activity groups everywhere. There are networking opportunities everywhere in business or in professional associations. And finally, working and learning at the same time gives you plenty of opportunities to grow up. If you're looking for an expensive party, hey, I say have at it. Just don't come back crying years later that you are drowning in debt and are only then starting to gather real world experience. As for the rest of us, let's continue. Full disclosure on my background and my new approach. My formal education includes design, creative thinking, financial management, marketing. These are all valuable skills. The skills that I got from my education, but honestly, I didn't need to spend 7 to 8 years in school beyond high school to get them. I'll tell you a quick story. Honestly, I used to sit in some of these classes and go, will you please get to the point? For God's sakes, get to the point. Show us the models, the tools, the frameworks. I'm thinking of my MBA in particular. Show us how to use them, how to apply them. And why do we have to sit through weeks of multi-hour courses to get this when we could just do a workshop and get right to the point? Honestly. Well, anyway, please bear in mind that you don't need years to get these skills. And again, that's the biggest point of what this website, podcast, my newsletter, my blog, it's all about. I'll also be rolling out accelerated courses. That's coming. But the bottom line is you can learn this stuff pretty quick. Honestly, the foundations could be laid in months and reinforced in a year maximum. My personal belief, I could probably get you up to speed on an MBA in a weekend. Same thing with college, same thing with a PhD. In fact, I believe each of these degrees could be done in just a few hours or a couple of days. No joke. Not kidding. Once you have the basic concepts down, it's just a matter of applying them and practicing and iterating because, by using it, that's how you get better. I mean, we all had to learn how to, walk, but we didn't just jump up and start walking. Remember, you had to learn how to roll over. Then you had to learn how to move your arms and legs. Then you had to get up on your hands and knees. Then you had to crawl. Then you started to surf the couch and the coffee table. Then you started to take some kind of weird steps towards mom or dad, and then eventually you were running away from mom and dad. So it takes a little bit of practice and trial and error, and that's how it works. And here's the thing: the approach that I'm advocating, this happens while you're earning money in the real world, not spending money in the fantasy world of college. Furthermore, advanced skills, they can be learned quickly and applied immediately into both your personal and professional endeavors. Again, they really cross over quite a bit. So still a little bit more of full disclosure. I also taught as an adjunct professor at several well-known universities and colleges, both on a graduate and undergraduate level. So I kind of know both sides of the coin. My experiences there further soured me on the college approach and the higher learning structure. I knew that it was a better way. I knew I could do it faster, but we were required to sit for hours and go through weeks of training to get things done that I could have done in a long weekend. Again, colleges turned into total bullshit. Most students, they were there to get their proverbial ticket punched. I saw it over and over again. The one personal takeaway that in terms of teaching, and this is one of the concepts we'll be talking about, when you can explain concepts, skills, and models that help further reinforce get someone's understanding, they further reinforce your understanding, your own skills, your own knowledge. That's a real key concept. If you can train others, you basically train yourself and learn at the same time, because repetition is the mother of learning, and you're reinforcing what you know. You should try it. Consider mentoring someone and in something that you really know, and you'd be surprised. You'll get a whole new perspective. So let's get back on track here. If you need more evidence that college may be lacking, let me run down a list I have of college dropouts. Steve Jobs, Apple Computer; Bill Gates, Microsoft; Mark Zuckerberg, Facebook; Michael Dell, Dell Computers; Larry Ellison, Oracle Corporation, that's software if you're not familiar; Richard Branson. Now he's an interesting guy. He started out in the record business, and now he's got, I think, a phone business and airline and everything else. The Virgin Group, I'm sure you've heard of him. This guy I put on the list because this whole thing was inspired by a Ford F-150 that I used to drive and still do to work listening to the things. Henry Ford, the founder of Ford Motor Company, didn't bother with college. Walt Disney, from the Walt Disney Company. Oprah Winfrey, we all know who she is. Quentin Tarantino, film director, very good movies, very good storyteller. Steven Spielberg, another film director. Al Pacino, actor. Robert De Niro, actor. Marlon Brando, actor. Common theme there, they're all in the Godfather series. The first two were magnificent masterpieces. The third one, not so much. I'm a movie buff, so there'll be a lot of references to movies when I do various things in this course. Orson Welles. Now, if you don't know who Orson Welles is, I'm sure if you were a film student, you know who he is. He, at the young age of somewhere between 25 and 30, created what is considered probably the masterpiece of filmmaking called Citizen Kane. If you haven't seen it, you should. If you go to film school, you probably will analyze it, break it down several times. The problem with that was he peaked early. He did some other great work, but never really got back. It's hard when you peak early. He also did one other interesting thing. He came out of radio, and he did a presentation with a team of actors on H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds. He basically went on the radio, and they pretended that the invasion was happening in New Jersey, and people went into a panic because they did it so realistic and lifelike. Interesting fellow. You should look into him. David Geffen, founder of DreamWorks. Let's move into another area. Ralph Lauren, fashion designer, no college. James Dean, actor. Another great actor we lost too early. Did a couple of really great films. You should check them out. Lucille Ball, actress and TV producer. Harrison Ford. If you don't know who he is, think Star Wars Han Solo or think Indiana Jones. The bottom line is, with a little vision, some talent, some skills, and sometimes, and many times, college really doesn't make sense. So don't be fooled into believing that college is the only way to success. You can sit here too and say, oh, some of these people, that was way back when. it's only going to accelerate going forward. A lot of these folks are starting to realize I'd rather apply the skills and get into the real world and make money as opposed to going and pretending and spending, getting into debt. So get to it. All right. Talking about alternatives, let's talk about Mike Rowe. Now, he's a man after my own heart. For many years, Mike has made a movement out of promoting the trades as a viable alternative to college. And he is 100% right. The trades are one of several viable alternatives to the college path. Mike used to do a show called Dirty Jobs. I think it was on the Discovery Channel. Some interesting things about him. He went to college. I think it was Towson University and Essex Community College. But the thing that I find really interesting about him, again, he promotes the trades. He was a former opera singer. I'm always intrigued by people's odd skills and talents. Always, looking to find out that kind of thing. It makes them a little more interesting. But the thing about Mike Rowe, again, was before everyone started to really catch on that college was a problem, Mike was already looking at this, and he was going into in his show Dirty Jobs, was going into some strange and messy occupations where people do some things that often go unnoticed. And the thing about that is, thank God those people do that. A lot of them get paid very well because it's not just messy, it's also difficult and dangerous. So he's very passionate about promoting the skilled trades and vocational education. It's a good alternative. He actually founded Mike Rowe Works, the foundation, and he provides scholarships for people that are looking into these fields. Personally, I think he's spot on. He was kind of ahead of the curve. He figured it out early. And honestly, I would look into him and learn a little bit about his approach. Side note, I would love to interview him here in the future. Let me know what works for you, Mike. Definitely want to talk to you because, again, we have very similar interests and desires to help people going forward because college is not necessarily the way to go. Here, let me tell you a quick story. Years ago, I worked with a woman in a corporate environment, and she was telling me about her son. And apparently her son was making $60,000 to $70,000 as a welder. This is probably 9 years ago. Big deal, you're going to say? Okay. Well, here's the kicker. That $60,000 to $70,000 as a welder was part-time. And furthermore, it was while he was still in trade school learning to weld. Remember the economics theory of supply and demand? Well, the market couldn't even wait for him to finish school. Just imagine what this guy is making now. Let me ask you this. If you went to college or you're in college, you making $60,000 to $70,000 part-time while you're going to school? Probably not. Think about that. And if you're worried about artificial intelligence when it comes to anything, but the trades in particular, you should really fear not if you're in the trades. It'll be a long time before a robot can replace you in the field doing custom work tasks. Let me emphasize that. In the field doing custom work tasks, because that requires situations where you have to do some on-the-site problem solving, and robots are not going to be able to do that anytime soon. You might be replaced maybe sooner in a controlled environment of a factory, but again, not in the field, not yet at least. Can a tradesman benefit from alternative learning and skills that we will address here? Absolutely. If you're in a office or managerial job, you can also upskill here. A lot of these guys in the trades, they will actually go and become their own bosses, and they need certain business skills and critical thinking skills. That'll be some of the things that happen here. Anyway, if college is bullshit, what approach makes sense now is probably what you should be asking, right? Well, that's where I intend to guide you through here. My feeling is, I can help guide you. I can point you in a particular direction. And the emphasis, again, is really on learning it fast and applying it even faster. I say that quite a bit to a lot of people. So I will share with you what I do to continue my education and earn equivalents of bachelor's, master's, and PhDs every year or two. I tend to use what I call a results-oriented model. Think of it this way. Today you realize, hey, I need to upskill. So consider this your current state. Tonight you go home and you learn. You start to get upskilled. You introduce yourself to the topic. You get shared information on the topic. You start to get an understanding of the topic. Tomorrow, you take the knowledge and skills and you apply them. That is your desired state. And when you start applying new skills, you get results. Results that you're going to see in your business. If your supervisor is going to see it, and again, very good things can happen. You'll end up getting a raise, a promotion, a new job, or if you have a business, you might be able to pick up some ways to improve it operationally. So let's focus on what matters and leave the college bullshit behind for someone else. Honestly, let's get focused. So here's some of my approach. It's built on some of the following things. I am a voracious reader. I read articles, books, and other content. I share them with some of my colleagues as well on a regular basis, because when I find something interesting, a lot of the people I associate with want to know this kind of stuff too. I do intense YouTube immersion into various and useful topics. I really dig down. I also tend to look at courses, ones that are offered at work. If you have that at work, take advantage of it. They're paying for it. It's a benefit. Use it. The other thing I will do is I will look for free online solutions. A lot of my content will be free. I will also have some paid content at some point. But the bottom line is coursework that you can do on your time quickly is a good way to go. I also do quite a few certifications. I'll do a whole thing on that. I've got quite a few of them. I do both free certifications and I do paid certifications. I also do quite a bit of searching of terms and topics as I see them. If I come across something new, I will actually go and I will dig into it. I want to be inquisitive, I'm curious, and I want to know more. Better to be informed and be able to know what you're talking about than to be surprised. I also use AI, ChatGPT, to aid in my research and other things. I'm going to probably do a whole segment on how to use that too. I also learn by doing. And that's, again, part of the key concept here. Learn it and apply it. You got to apply. I also learn by asking questions and watching. If I come across something that I'm not familiar with, or someone that knows something more than I do, I usually say to them, hey, can you enlighten me on this? Can you give me some guidance? I like watching and asking questions because that's how I get better. I also like learning by trial and error. Again, you've got to apply, and then you have to iterate, pivot, and try again. And once you get a cadence going where you're doing a little bit of learning, a little bit of application and getting results, you want to continue to do that. The new expression I keep hearing everywhere is rinse and repeat. I also believe in experimenting in new approaches. If I come across something, I'll actually try it out, see if it makes sense for me. I also do quite a bit of testing and refining. My view is there is no perfection, there's only better. So over time, you're constantly going to tweak and improve things. You're never going to get a final finished product per se. There's always something you can do to make it better. So that is some of what I do, and there's a whole bunch more, and we'll get into it again over the course of this podcast series. So during the ongoing podcast series, I'm going to expand on all of these approaches and more. Essentially, I'm going to share with you what you really need to know from a college, MBA, or PhD degree. It's not going to cost you years of your life and hundreds of thousands of dollars. You'll be able to have the foundation of what MBAs know. You'll be able to think and speak like an MBA, and you'll have a better education than an MBA or PhD without going broke in the process and wasting your time. In this particular place, we cut through the college bullshit. So colleagues, I invite you to open your minds to a different approach to learning and applying that knowledge, and join me here. Let me leave you with today's quote of the day. If you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. That was said by Henry Ford. I thought that was apropos to include him here, since again, the inspiration came when I was sitting in my Ford F-150. So I want to thank you for joining me, and I want to see you next time. Please subscribe to receive notification on the next episode. And just a couple more points. We've come to the end of today's discussion. I hope you enjoyed the topic. I would love to hear from you. Please comment, leave some feedback. Specifically, I want to learn more about you and some of the topics you'd be interested in, because I have a good idea what you're looking for, but I always want to hear from my stakeholders, so to speak, and see what they do. I'm a project manager, if you haven't guessed the certain terms I've used. Also, please share your successes and the challenges that you've had implementing some of what you learn here. Again, I'm George Sloan. I'll be your guide for learning and development. Let's upskill together without college. Advanced practical learning doesn't need to take years and cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. Also, please don't keep me a secret. Tell others so they can join us, and together we can all move forward and learn more. Please join us on Tuesdays when I'm typically going to have these things drop. And I want to thank you all again, and have a good day. Hopefully you got something out of this. Look forward to seeing you and hearing from you the next time. Thank you.